Well, first and foremost, we are super honored and thankful to have the commissioner, the Arizona real estate commissioner here, Miss Judy Lowe. Judy, thank you very, very much for joining us here today. We
Thank
really, really
you for
appreciate.
having me.
We really, really appreciate you taking the time to join us. We're thankful to have known you for several years now. And, we miss seeing you in person. Our quarterly broker owner lunches that we used to see you at, on a pretty regular basis. We miss seeing you. And I know we asked you off air, do you miss us too?
Oh, you don't know. I miss energy, people's body language and watching their eyes and all of those things that you do person to person.
Yeah.
Well, we miss you.
Yes, we do. Again, obviously this has been, a change for all of us, and we're all been kind of trying to, work through this and do what we have to do to continue to be productive and take care of our livelihoods and our families and do everything that we need to do. So once again, thank you in advance. Excited to jump into a whole bunch of things with you here today. So once again, thank you for joining us. So you have been the commissioner for the Department of Real Estate here in Arizona since 2015. What would you say in that time has been the biggest change? What have you seen that's been the biggest change in your tenure?
Well, my anniversary is tomorrow, by the way.
Oh, happy anniversary.
11 years tomorrow.
Missed it by a day.
What have I seen as the biggest change? I think from a business perspective, the running a government agency from a business point of view, looking at financials, looking at most of all customer service, looking at seeing the real estate professional as the department's customer. We all partner together to protect the consumer, but the Department of Real Estate really services the real estate profession. So I would say that that is one of the main changes. The other is looking at real estate from the inside. I came from the real estate profession, actually was out in the trenches listing and selling, and then owned my own company up until just before I took this position. So I grew up in Tucson and raised my family in Tucson. And the move to Scottsdale was a real experience for me personally, but then really defining here at the department who the department serves. My first couple months here, my staff, I taught them how to walk in the shoes of the real estate licensee. And remember that the real estate licensee doesn't get a paycheck every 2 weeks. And they work on weekends and they work until late at night. So walking in the shoes of the real estate licensee really gave the department a different perspective as a government agency, a different perspective on the serving the customer, which is the real estate professionals.
That's one of the things that I've loved, about you and about having you as our commissioner. I know I've been incredibly grateful. Mark and I have talked about this, over the years. Exactly what you just said right there is that you, I don't want to say that you have our backs necessarily. Well, hopefully you do, but as the licensees or the broker owners out there, ultimately, like you said, we're here to serve the consumer. But you do understand and know what it's like to be in our shoes and to be in our industry. So you have a really, I think, special perspective on being able to look at all aspects of the equation when it comes to our particular business, and then act accordingly. So, I want to dive into a couple more things. What are the top 3 challenges that you're seeing right now facing the Arizona Department of Real Estate?
Well, it's and I usually have a hard time looking at challenges as negatives. There are usually areas that need extra attention and extra work. So the number one challenge, I would say, are the enforcing statutes and rules, regulation that was put in place years ago, and adapting that to the changing business models of today. Whether it's the iBuyer profile, or whether it's teams, or whether it's individual licensees who are being forced to do business differently, and yet we have statutes and rules that must be enforced that were written not with today's marketplace in mind. So that would be the number one challenge that I see. And we're all working through that together because it's changing, and it's changing so fast. If we look at another challenge, it would be remembering that we protect the consumer in the real estate transaction. Whether we're the Department of Real Estate, whether we're the Association of Realtors, or whether we're individual licensees out serving the needs of the buyers and the sellers of real estate in Arizona, we are charged with fiduciary duty and protecting the consumer. Doesn't mean we can't run our business like a business, but our first priority is protecting that consumer in the real estate transaction. So that would be another challenge that was given to us many, many years ago, and it's just as prevalent and just as needed today as it was way back then. And then we're going to probably talk about a few of the other challenges that are making the phone ring at the department that are day-to-day challenges. So when you look at three challenges, those would be it.
Got it.
Cool. Yeah, I've always wondered too on when these rules were created years and years ago, like you said, it's like, how do you, they would seem archaic now, and trying to adapt to all these new changes along just with how it was before. So that's got to be definitely something you guys are dealing with every day as well.
Well, and Mark, it's not just a challenge for the department, it's a challenge for our real estate licensees.
Yeah, absolutely.
To know and understand the laws and what the law requires of them, and then to build a business model that accommodates that.
Sure. Speaking of licensees, we were talking briefly offline about this. What are you seeing as far as new licensees, so new applications, and then renewals over the last couple of months from, let's call it February to today? How is that looking? New applications to renewals?
Well, let's look at new applications first. Up until April 1st, we were averaging about 600 new licensees every single month activating their license. We're down. Last month, we had 140.
Wow.
Dramatic difference.
Wow.
In looking at renewals, because of what we've done education-wise and really focused in on looking at the real estate licensees, and all professional real estate people do what I probably did when I was concerned about my license, and that was waiting till the last minute to get our CE, and then staying up and trying to figure out how to upload all of those hours into the computer on our personal page on the last day of the month when our license expires.
We don't know what you're talking about, Judy.
No one's
It happens to everyone. And recognizing that and looking at it mid-March and thinking, there aren't going to be any classroom classes that will be allowed to be held. What are we going to do? We knew that we had 400 plus online courses, but we were averaging probably 500 classroom classes. And so that's when we went to the host remote delivery, which I know your John Dyer is so high on right now.
Right.
And allowed all of those classroom classes
Yeah.
were scheduled to be converted to host remote through the use of an addendum. The addendum does have some pretty strict requirements on it, and the workload of those addendums have been huge. In April, we approved 150 classes to be held and delivered host remote. And in May, we're on track to do about 250.
Wow.
So workload wise here at the department, it's been a challenge, but we have had the input and the help of all of those schools and instructors who have adhered to the very strict criteria that we had to develop in order to deliver a quality product, as well as to be able to get the conversions done in time for the classes to be delivered.
So you mentioned our John Dyer, who is is our managing broker here. Super lucky to have him with us. And again, he has his school, and he is an instructor and teaches all over the valley, of course. And so, of course, we can't help but ask. You guys were very quick to adapt, and we give you credit. High five from afar. Quick to adapt to the renewals going, online, and the classes and continuing education and whatnot going online. Is that something that, where do you stand on that? What do you see for that as we go into the future?
Well, we did do an update yesterday, and our update went to all of those that have an email address on their personal page at ADRE. So if you want to get the updates from the department, both now and in the future, make sure your email address is up to date on your personal page, and also subscribe at azre.gov for the late breaking news. So those two elements with the right email address will get you all the news from the department. But our update yesterday indicated and confirmed that we're dealing with this 1 month at a time. And right now we're we're finalizing May, and we're moving into June. So all of the classroom classes must be scheduled on our online system in order to be able to convert those in June to host remote. After June, where's it going? Well, of course, we're all dreaming of the day that we can come back together and be live bodies sitting next to each other and giving hugs. But in the meantime, we will be continuing to deal with 1 month at a time, but we are also going to put together a work group that will look at, of educators and licensees, that will look at the host remote program going forward. We already have a host remote approval that allows for a host in one location to deliver to a group of recipients all together in another location. But we had never addressed all of those recipients being at individual locations throughout Arizona, maybe even throughout the world, as far as that goes. So it really needs some quality controls put in place, both from the requirements of a school and an instructor, all the way down to requirements for the recipients sitting in this remote classroom. You know, today we are not seeing faces, but faces probably will be a requirement going forward, because the monitoring of who is in that class for the entire 3 hours for CE and 90 hours for pre-licensing, the requirement to monitor that attendance and who is there and how they proved who they are in entering to become a part of the class, all of those things will have to be addressed in the application, the final application that we'll move forward to. So what I'm saying is stay tuned. In the meantime, it's one class at a time. And remember that the individual licensee must take their own 3 hours. One thing that we are seeing that's making the phone ring at the department are real estate licensees who are either borrowing certificates from other licensees and uploading them. Don't get any ideas out there.
Yikes.
Or they are hiring someone to take their CEs and are uploading it. That is almost an automatic revocation of a license right there.
Sure, understandably.
Falsifying everything that's being done for education, real estate education in the state of Arizona. And I'm livid about it. I don't
And
know
that's
if it
why
always happened and it's just being pointed out, or whether it's something that has been happening and the department hasn't been aware of it.
Yeah, I think that, you know, again, obviously when we're dealing with a numbers game, when you have, you know, how many licensees do we have now, Judy? 80,000?
89,000 real estate licenses.
89,000. You know, when you have 89,000 people, unfortunately, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, you're going to get a bad apple here and there, you know, and it's just kind of part of the game. So I think that that's probably something that's been going on for a long time, maybe ever since, you know, classes went online. But, you know, that could be another proponent or another thing to factor in here when we talk about, you know, again, here we are all on a Zoom call right now, and you can look at our faces and you can see that we're engaging back and forth. Right. And so I know that, you know, again, John spoke to that, and a couple other instructors out there said that maybe this could be a platform that could improve the attendance and improve, you know, showing who folks are and showing that they're the ones that are actually on and they're the ones that are completing the classes.
Yeah.
Great.
So hopefully more engagement.
Recognizes that.
Right.
I was going to do a
And so
quick
as
interruption. Sorry, really quick. I'm getting messages to my phone while we're doing this, and somebody really wanted me to express her utmost appreciation for the department allowing Zoom CE classes. So, and that's one of our top producers. So thank you.
Great.
Yes.
Judy, we do thank you. And again, you guys, you've done a tremendous job being a leader. I know that, is it by design that you come off as very sweet and nice, but then you're a drill sergeant behind the scenes? Is that by design?
I think it's the way I grew up, and I have.
Is that right? No, Judy, you're awesome, and we're super humbled and grateful to have you as our commissioner. So again, as you talk about going into the future, whether it be online CE or whatever it may be, I know we are all somewhat at the mercy of the folks leading where we happen to be in Arizona. Again, you know, we have our brokerage in 9 states currently, and we're at the mercy of what is going on in each one of those states. The bulk of our business happens to be here in Arizona. So again, we're thankful for that and for you. But you know, we are at the mercy here of Governor Ducey, and I know that the latest, you know, as we continue to open up our state, that there's still some guidelines in place, no large gatherings being one of them. So as we transition, talking about, you know, going back into the classroom, that might limit our classroom settings. But I want to transition when we talk about, you know, Mr. Ducey, how, without making this political in any way, and let's do our best to steer away from the politics, but how is he and or his policies supporting you and the department here in Arizona?
Well, of course, I work for Governor Ducey, and I think he's the most incredible boss that a director could ever have. When we look at his message to the agencies, is it's all about the people. Yes, it is about the economy because the people participate in that. We were very instrumental in petitioning for real estate to be considered an essential service in Arizona, which gave us all the ability to continue to practice the profession that we're so proud of. But from the department's perspective, we did almost a total shutdown here, as many businesses in Arizona have done. And we have 31 employees. At one time, until last week, there were only 4 employees in the office at any one time. And that was my deputy Lewis, myself, and our chief of staff, Abby Hansen, and one other employee. We acted as the conduit for the rest of our staff that were teleworking. We gave them assignments all day long. We continue to do that. Governor Ducey asked for a 3-phase reentry. He described it as the light bulb coming on, and you can turn it up little by little in 3 primary stages as your staff re-enters. So the first phase that we are in just started yesterday. It will allow us to have 10 staff. Our 10 staff will be doing the interaction with our internal proprietary database, which houses all the personal information of our 89,000 real estate licensees. We could not allow outside access to that database. So with our 10 and a half, because our IT person will be here 2 days a week, with that, we will move forward to second phase. No guidance on how long the 2 phases. Someone has.
I got it.
There's some feedback.
That was tough to find through 95 people who it was, but I found it.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sorry.
Thanks, Cal.
Kelly.
Yeah.
The 3rd phase will be re-entry of everyone. We don't know when that's coming, but we're really looking forward to it. Governor Ducey is an amazing leader through an economic downturn like we already have been in this last couple months.
Awesome. You know, it's nice to know that the leader and your boss is how highly you think of him. It's reassuring for, I think, all of us to know that he's got everyone's best interest at heart, and it's got to be a tough position to be in, making these types of decisions. So kudos to him and to you, and continuing to lead and helping us get through all this. The other great thing about having you as a commissioner is somebody who's been in the business, who's your whole life ran an awesome business, a successful one at that. And we know that you love teams, right? We've talked about teams and the issues surrounding teams. And I think that it's one of those things that's very hard for a lot of people to understand truly what the commissioner's stance is on what the rules and regulations are around and how you govern teams. So what would be the main point to address to the team leaders out there as a whole regarding teams and where you're seeing the biggest issues?
Okay.
It's a tough one, but you know.
Mark, you're absolutely right. Whether I have to be tough on teams, I still respect that the teams are a business model, and they are a business model of the future. They serve and protect the same consumers that the entire profession protects.
Absolutely.
We have a new substantive policy statement. I'll hold it up to the camera. Let everyone know. Please distribute it within the company. And I'm going to mention just a couple of things, Mark and Jeremy, if it's all right, and Kelly.
Of course.
We're on our substantive policy statement, just in case not everyone has read it. Some of what I'm going to point out is not going to feel comfortable because, as I say, the horses are already out of the barn. Well, we're going to have to gather those horses back in and adhere to the substantive policy statement of government and of the department in order to be able to move forward. One thing is, a team is not defined in statute or rules, but the department and the profession defines a team as more than one real estate licensee coming together to participate in a business model as a team. Support staff cannot be classified as team members. That may not feel good, but our consumer must know who are licensed individuals on a team. So getting that message out, our support staff should be recognized for all they do. And if they're included in our advertising, we must indicate under their name unlicensed, because they are unlicensed. And the consumer must recognize that. Everyone else in the advertisement will be licensed, but team members in the ad must be designated. Advertising, of course, every bit of advertising, which includes radio and TV and everything, must include the employing broker. And the employing broker is my home group. And it must
For
be
all
prominent.
licensees.
What was that, Jeremy?
No, I'm just kidding, Judy. I said the employee broker is my home group for all licensees. I'm just messing around.
The team leader is an important role. However, the designated broker is the responsible party and represents my home group, in your case, as the supervisory individual responsible for everyone in the company. So all advertising, every page on a website must include my home group. And I'll tell you what it's not. Hard to define, clear and prominent, but it is not my home group buried in the bottom right-hand corner, and it takes a magnifying glass to see it. It must be clear and prominent so every member of the public knows what company they are working with and where to go to contact the designated broker should the needs be. Another thing is compensation. Compensation is any payment, first to a licensed individual, any payment to a licensed individual within a company must be done by the designated broker in writing. So if it's to the accounting department of the company, it has to be a directive, and it must come from the company to the licensee. Unless an outside payroll company is being used, if that's what's being used, the distribution of the compensation must come in writing on every single transaction from the designated broker to the payroll company. The compensation cannot be paid to a team leader, a PC, a PLLC, and then the PLLC or the LLC paying other licensees. That is not allowed by statute. A real estate licensee must be paid only by the broker that they're employed with, and they can only receive compensation from the broker that they're employed with. So the PC, PLLC, or LLC can pay unlicensed individuals if those unlicensed individuals are employed by the PC, the PLLC, or the LLC and do not do real estate activity. One thing that we're seeing right now are the unlicensed individuals who claim that they were employed by an employing broker, a name of a company, and they're claiming their unemployment against that company when really they may have been employed by an LLC and should be coming back to the LLC to claim their unemployment insurance. The other thing that we see are unlicensed assistants who are leaving the group, leaving the team under duress, and are going to the Labor Commission and the IRS to say that they were being treated as an independent contractor unlicensed assistant when really they were an employee. So those are some things for our teams to really pay attention to and to address within their teams and with the brokerage. One last thing, which I believe some of the horses are out of the barn, where the team is located must be a branch of the company licensed at the department with a branch manager, and the signage on that building must conform only to the signage of the corporate office. So the team name, doesn't matter who's paying the rent on the space, the team name cannot be on the building and cannot be on the front of the building. It must be the name of the company as it's licensed with the department and as the signage is on the corporate office. So those are some of the guidelines that may not feel good, but we're getting complaints, written complaints here at the department every day against teams that are violating these guidelines, coming from consumers and coming from other real estate licensees. So that's
not
the message.
Would you say when you said the complaints from consumers and agents from the teams, what would you say the number one violation is? Or is it hard to determine?
Advertising would be the number one violation. However, unlicensed assistants that were paid incorrectly, we don't get into that, but those complaints are coming here. We send them to the IRS and to the Labor Commission.
Gotcha. Interesting. Interesting.
So
Yeah.
the teams cannot even have their logo or their name on the window of the office at all, only the brokerage.
Yes, we are now not out driving around from the Department of Real Estate looking for that, but if a complaint comes in, especially if the complaint is from a consumer who didn't know that wasn't a company under a company, which it's not. It is a team under a designated broker employed by the company and responsible for the company.
Sure. So how about the signage? Is that still something that you're seeing a lot of complaints about in terms of the signage issues?
Yes, Jeremy, and the signage falls under advertising, both the employing broker's name clear and prominent, as well as the signage. Those fall under advertising as far as the department is concerned. And by statute, when it's a written complaint, we must pursue it. By statute, we are required to pursue every written complaint and turn it into an investigation that comes into the department.
Right. Anything else while we're on that topic? Kel, hold that question. While we're on this topic, so anything else? And again, I know that the last thing that you ever try to be is doom and gloom. You're looking out for the consumers, you're looking out for the community, and you're looking out for broker owners and agents. So again, I know that the last thing that you ever try to be is doom and gloom, but anything else that you have that agents and or broker owners or team leaders need to be aware of that you're seeing in that department of complaints or violations to help people out here?
Yes, and one of the strongest complaints that are coming in from consumers is around agents who are forgetting to disclose that they are an agent when they're buying or selling on their own behalf or advertising on their own behalf. So warehousing, iBuyer, any real estate licensee, whether they're doing it under the company or they're doing it on their own, whether they're buying, selling, or leasing a property, must disclose in all advertising and as soon as practicable in every transaction that they have an Arizona real estate license and the company that their license is hung under. That is a huge violation now, especially when consumers are wanting to back out of transactions and they're looking everywhere they can for an excuse for backing out. And many of them, the only thing that they can find is that the agent that represented them or was on the other side of the transaction did not disclose that they were in real estate.
Unfortunate to hear that. I feel like that's real estate 101.
Yeah, I was going to say 101 right there.
Yeah, when in doubt, disclose. I mean, that is a major piece to the equation when we're licensed. Obviously, all of us on this call most likely are licensed, or to not be doing that, it's pretty disappointing to hear. But hopefully, people are hearing it from the horse's mouth loud and clear now. So Kelly, did you have another question?
Yeah, just they're coming in and I feel like they're good on the topic. So regarding
good.
How about the use of word realty group? The use of the words.
The team name stuff.
Yeah.
Your real estate.
Used to the Department of Real Estate reviewed and approved all team names. Shortly before I came to my position 11 years ago, that was given back to the designated broker to make those decisions. The designated broker has to look at it from the perspective, am I approving a team name here that could create the impression in the minds of the public that this is a real estate company? Realty should not be allowed. Group, it depends on how it's used within that team name. Associate shouldn't be named. Real estate should not be included in the name. Of course, realtor can never be included in the name of a team. So really using the guidelines, does it create perception in the minds of the public that this team is a company and not a team under a company?
Got it.
Good question, Kelly. Yeah, it comes up a lot. So thank you for addressing that.
Yeah. And the second part of that was, how about agents disclosing their brokerage in email and text?
Email and text, if it's used to generate business in any way, it must include the name of the employing broker. If it's used to be an oversight in business, or used in business, it needs to include the name of the brokerage, My Home Group. If it is used in social media, Facebook, and the number of words that are limited, we should always create one click from the social media line to a website page that has the name of the company clear and prominent.
Got it. And yeah, I've heard you, described again that clear and prominent is a little bit of a moving target. Do you believe that that's a moving target, or do you want to clarify that any further for us?
We define, the investigators and auditors here define clear and prominent as the ability. Number one, it's the perception that the consumer thought when they went to the ad. If they say, I didn't know who the brokerage was, it wasn't on there, and we drill down and find out it was on there, but it wasn't clear and prominent. Clear and prominent really needs to be very visible to the consumer, so the consumer knows where to go when they want to talk to the company that they're working with.
So for a while, we looked at it, I think it was maybe described as, I feel like there was maybe, talk going around the industry that it was being described as like a size thing. If the company logo was bigger, or we heard, 3/4 for the brokerage, 1/4 for the team. But that's not necessarily the case, correct?
It's not written in statute or rule. However, a designated broker would be very wise to include it in their broker policy manual and make it a requirement of everyone in their company. Then they don't have to be held responsible as a designated broker for supervising the advertising a claim that they didn't supervise the advertising when the advertising did not have the name of the company clear and prominent. So
Yeah.
putting that definition in our broker policy manual and making sure that every licensee reads that policy manual and signs off on it, and maybe every year needs to read it again and get a sign which is held in their employee file that they knew what the guidelines of the company were.
Does the same thing go for individual agents? So let's say for the folks out there that, you know, John Doe agent that turns his name into a brand, right, as the name of the individual is the brand, and then with My Home Group, same thing goes there?
Same thing goes there.
Okay.
We have to keep the consumer very aware that this individual or this team are working under a brokerage.
Got it.
And
So,
you know, if you're not proud of your brokerage, go out and open your own company.
that's true,
Brokers
right?
don't like to hear me say that, but you know,
No.
not everybody should be a designated broker. It's a
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
huge.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, you know, for us, I mean, we have always taken the stance, or it's been, I should say, in our belief system, to really want to put the agents themselves in bright shining lights. And of course, we're proud of our own brokerage, and we hope all the agents here are proud of My Home Group and what we do and what we stand for and provide, et cetera. But we've always been big believers in wanting and believing and standing behind the agent, because they're the ones at the end of the day that, yes, of course, they're an extension of the brokerage, but they're the ones dealing and interacting with the consumers, and that they're the one that the consumer is choosing to work with. I don't think that any consumer out there says, hey, look, I'm looking to buy a home and I must have a My Home Group agent or an ABC Realty agent or whatever. They're going with the people that they know, like, and trust. And we've always believed in putting them in bright shining lights. So I want to apologize. Hopefully we haven't been the ones to cause you any more troubles with how we you know, look and view that and allowing agents to brand themselves. But, you know, again, we've always tried to push and promote the department's guidelines in any branding, any signing, advertising, et cetera. So hopefully we haven't caused you any extra headaches.
No, and the consumer actually decides whether I have a headache or not when they file the complaint.
Right. So let's transition away from that if we could. So, you know, as we go, you know, I know we talked about, to kind of kick this off, what you looked at is the biggest challenges facing the department, facing your team. What do you see as we go into the future? What do you see as maybe some things that you could see changing and or any challenges? And I know you don't like to be negative or to talk on the challenges. So what can you see in the future if you were to predict any changes coming down?
I think the quality and enforcement of our education, which we've already touched on. I believe that raising the bar of the real estate profession in knowledge and expertise is vital to the survivor as a real estate licensee. I serve on the board of directors for the Real Estate License Law Officials Internationally. And my counterparts, directors from around the world, come together about 3 times a year, and then the board meets every month to talk about what's going on in the world around real estate. And some of the challenges that we are seeing are the license portability. Remember that Arizona has out-of-state license recognition, but that is not the ability to have a real estate license in California and be able to sell real estate anywhere that you want to in the United States. Our license recognition requires that the California person move to Arizona and have their real estate license in California be recognized here in Arizona. And the only thing that they do differently in getting an Arizona real estate license before they get in the business is they don't have to take the 90 hours of real estate education that our real estate licensees in Arizona have to take. So they still have to take the exam, but they don't have to take the 90 hours. So portability of a license is something that will present challenges going forward. The other will be the challenge to the real estate license in general. We have got to begin to protect the licensing of our profession. How many times has a real estate licensee been asked by a consumer, do you have a real estate license? Well, not very often. When I do it in a classroom, not many hands go up.
Right.
However, we've got to start talking about the value of the real estate license to the consumer, the value of our knowledge, what it took to get a license, what it takes to maintain having a license, the value of our negotiation skills, the value of our experience, the value of moving from a salesperson's license to a broker's license, stepping up our knowledge and our expertise. Those are the real values that are built around having a real estate license. And we're going to have to start working very hard at protecting that, or pretty soon it may not require a real estate license to sell real estate in Arizona or any other state.
Judy, those are such great points. Yeah, those are great points. And I think that we are along the same lines with what we speak to and how we have really make a concerted effort trying to empower and educate our agents and really the entire community. You know, we are with you on this in terms of, you know, wanting us all to get better, and we all have that responsibility. Mark, myself, Kelly, the entire organization, Judy, obviously you're doing a tremendous part, of course, of trying to help the entire industry get better. And you know, this is an industry that's been good to all of us, and we want to pay it forward, and we want to, like I said, empower and educate those around us so that we can all collectively get better. When we talk about the professionals, there's been talks over the last year, 2 years, it's kind of gone back and forth a little bit. When we talk about the true professionals of the industry, about a rating system, is there any new talks or developments from your perspective on any type of a rating system for agents that are productive, that are serving at a high level in terms of being able to actually refer to a rating system?
As far as the government is concerned, no. As far as the Association of Realtors is concerned, that might be an issue to bring forward to the association. You know, they are the trade association, and their customer is the real estate licensee as well, but they are the ones that oversee the standard of practice, the ethics. Not to say that the Department of Real Estate doesn't look at that, but we don't look at the production of the individual licensee. We look at the adherence to the laws of Arizona of the real estate licensee. And of course, our website allows you to look at any real estate licensee, scroll to the bottom, and see if they've had any disciplinary action against their license. So we look at it strictly as a profession that adheres to the real estate laws of Arizona. Got it.
So a couple questions here, obviously, before we go, being respectful of your time. You mentioned a couple of these in your comments towards how the industry is changing or the challenges that you see going forward. Any other skills from your perspective that you think agents need as we go forward in this industry? What skills do we need to continue to be productive agents in your eyes?
The skill to demonstrate our value proposition to the transaction. The skill to talk about the education that we've acquired the negotiation classes or courses that we've taken, the ability that we have to be a professional, a trained and educated professional who delivers services and expertise that the consumer will not get by going online and interacting with an unlicensed entity or an entity that represents only themselves and their company.
Another great point. As again, we talked about was we're in danger potentially of becoming a commodity. That it's another responsibility that we have is to be the best that we can be, and then articulate that very clearly on the value that we provide. Go ahead, Mark, you got something? Sure.
Yeah, just one other quick question. We kind of touched on at the beginning around the Zoom. I know that we're taking this, as you said, month by month. I think everybody, it's month by month, in fact, down to day by day. What is your opinion on actually allowing Zoom CE for I know you said again it's just being figured out each month, but what's your opinion on actually allowing that to continue as a standard moving forward in your opinion?
From my perspective, I'm always open to change, especially when it's based on technology and still has the human aspects of it. There will, and Mark, you're always good at bringing us back to the touchy subjects. There will be some very, very strict guidelines to improve the quality of our schools, our instructors, and the content. You know, continuing education is really not supposed to be to teach feng shui or staging a home or really coaching or business models. The continuing education delivering the 24 hours of CE requirements has got to be based on statute, rules, SPSs of the government of the state of Arizona. So we have a lot of courses out there that have got to be cleaned up. It's not about how to use it.
I fully agree with you there, 100%.
It's not about how to use the MLS. It is about what are our duties to the clients that we are representing. And that in itself will have to become a part of this focus on education that we're going to have moving forward. So tell John Dyer to just keep those addendums for as long as he can.
Judy, I got another one, Judy, that's very obviously current, specific to this time right now, and that's the COVID addendum. What is your perspective? Because I know this is something that we're discussing amongst our organization. We've even taken it outside the organization and trying to talk to some other broker owners, but we'd like to hear it from you. Required, recommended, can no longer be used. What's your perspective on that?
Well, remember that is an Arizona Association of Realtors form that the brokerages will put in place in their company as a requirement or not as a requirement. I will say that the more precautions that you can put around the transaction and the marketing of a property, the better. And then once you put the requirements in place, you have to be able to enforce the usage of that. We are beginning to see a few complaints coming in from listing sellers who have their home on the market during this time frame, and they're not really encouraging open houses, but the buyer's agents in the same company or outside of the same company are bringing clients through using the key box key and not respecting the guidelines, the showing guidelines that should be in all of our MLS data printouts. So two things there. If you need to get your seller's approval for showings in writing, go ahead and do that. If you need to enforce with your agents that if you're representing buyers and you're showing a property, make sure that you're following the guidelines that are already printed and published as far as showing that property, because the complaints that are coming in against the listing company as well against the company whose agent showed the property, a luxury home in Paradise Valley. An agent brought in a family of 10 to preview the property. And then someone in the home came down with COVID. And that family, seller family, is blaming everyone that was involved.
Oh, yeah.
We may see legislation. It's not guaranteed, but it may come forward from our legislature here in Arizona. Even though they have been on recess, they may come back together to look at some liability releases for businesses around COVID-19 and the risk and liability that has been jeopardized and now has claims coming. There will be some legislation that will limit those claims from taking effect.
Well, good. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, two-part question here, Judy, to wrap us up. Take us home. We're over the time here. And again, we want to be respectful of your time. Two-part question. Can you be our commissioner forever? And any parting shots or any final comments here for us?
Well, I've been in my position 11 years tomorrow, and I work at the pleasure of the governor. I was appointed by Jan Brewer, and then Doug Ducey reappointed me when he became governor. He only has 2 years left, so it will depend on the next governor. He will not be able to run again. The next governor will decide who the commissioner is going to be. So is that general enough for you? And political? General.
Yeah.
We know what we have to do about it.
Yeah, Jeremy and I know exactly what we'll do to the next governor.
Thank you for the company that you run. Thank you for feeding the economy of Arizona. And thank you for being professionals and for being responsible for a huge, huge group of real estate professionals.
Thank you, Judy, so much. Really appreciate, really appreciate you, all your team does, everything the department does. And I want to thank you again for coming on and taking the time to share with all of us. And we hope to see you soon.
Yeah, hopefully soon at the next broker lunch, whenever that is.
Thanks so much. Look forward.
All right, Judy. Thanks
all.
all.
Take care, everybody. Have a great day, everyone.